Welcome back to the Agronomy Answers podcast. We're unveiling another new segment on today's show. Today, it's going to be called Convince Me. So Convince Me is where it's going to be me with my dad or maybe some other guest where they're trying to convince me of some topic that they agree on, basically, is how Convince Me will work.
Something we feel strongly on.
Yeah, something that you feel strongly about. And today's episode, the Convince Me topic will be corn should be planted as early as possible. So today it's me, Zach Hefty, joined with my dad, Brian Hefty. Let's get right into it.
All right.
Personally, this is a big topic around everywhere that plants corn. Should you plant it as early as possible? I don't know. Why would you say, what would be your opening statement about that?
I want to make as much money as possible on the farm. That means I got to have higher yields. And over the years, we've always, on average, seen early planting pays. Early planting gives us higher yields. That's the number one reason. I want to make money. And people I'm talking to, people I'm working with, I want them to make money too. Plant earlier, it usually works out for the best.
So the question is, why is it basically a generalized statement around here, you have to wait till it's 50 degrees to plant?
That's kind of always what people have said. But we have proven now that's absolutely not true. But we do have much better genetics today. We have much better seed treatments today. And for example, like for us with our 40 series corn, it's the only corn that, literally we test it at 40 degrees. And it's the only corn we know of in the world that's recommended for planting at 40 degrees. And it's great. And I'll be honest, I'd like to call it 39 series corn or 35 series corn. It'll be fine in the 30s too. As long as the soil is dry and you're planting, it works out fine. So the big things I tell people are, number one, on average, you're going to get higher yields. And I can't guarantee you every single year that early planting is going to give you much higher yield than later planting. But that's number one. I want higher yield. I want to plant early. But number two, I got all these other jobs to get done on the farm, and so does everybody else. Well, if I'm more timely with my corn planting, that means I'm now more timely with my soybean planting, with my spraying, with my scouting, with everything else that I'm doing. So it really buys time. And that's the biggest thing. Go ask any farmer, hey, do you have lots of free time? And every farmer out there is going to say, no, I'm super busy at certain times of the year, especially in the spring. So if we can add on a few days, that's a really big deal.
So the thing is, though, when you're planting that early, it's very, very cold out.
Yep.
How is the seed possible where you could plant it earlier? Is it specific seeds that do better in that? Or can you plant any seed and you plant it early and it's going to do, on average, better?
Okay, so the first thing is, we want to have good genetics. Now, granted, as a whole, we have much better genetics than we used to. So that's part of it. And like for us with our Hefty brand corn, we're trying to pick varieties that have really good vigor. The next thing is we want to test the cold germination score, not just the warm germination score. We're doing testing at 40 degrees, and we're able to prove, hey, this stuff actually is fine. And by the way, corn will grow at temperatures lower than 50. We have proven that as well. And then the third step is really having the right seed treatment. So we have experimented for so many years now, decades now, on seed treatment. And this kind of goes back to when I was a young farmer over 30 years ago, and we decided to start planting some corn early. And it was okay, but we had issues. And so we're like, look, we really want to plant early. I know that's good on average, but how can we get better, not just survivability, but better consistency, and how can we get that plant to thrive early on? So we started experimenting with all these different things, not just fungicide and insecticide, but biologicals as well. And now what we found, like with our Hefty Complete Corn Seed Treatment, we can pop that corn out of the ground usually 20% faster than the untreated stuff. 20% or 20% faster versus a lot of competitive stuff. It's that big a difference. So I'm not saying here again, it's always going to work out that way, but on average, I know our stuff's going to come out faster than when I've got any other seed treatment on there. Plus, we have better survivability. We have better early vigor, and we have more nutrients in that plant early on. That's part of our testing too, is we test plant tissue analysis, nutrient levels with all these different things and seed treatments and everything else, and we're finding more nutrients in the plant. So ultimately that leads to higher yield, but it also in the short term leads to much better survival in those colder environments.
So one of the things that I've noticed in the past years out scouting fields, some farmers are planting very early, like you've said, but the only difference between them planting early and planting later is they had worse emergence early versus, and then it's like almost perfect stand going later. Okay. Why would that happen?
Okay, well, first of all, everybody's going to have a better stand later than they are earlier for two reasons. Number one, we're now talking about the warm germination score, which is mostly always going to be higher than the cold germination score. By the way, the warm germination, that's around at 77 degrees. So when I'm talking 77 degrees versus 40 degrees, a little bit of difference there. So generally, a few more plants are going to live when it's warm. But we're offsetting that with higher yields when planted earlier. So I can literally sacrifice just a few plants and we turn out fine. But anyway, the other side of this thing is, if I'm planting early, it takes roughly 80 to 120 growing degree units to get that seed out of the ground, depending on the variety, depending on the treatment and everything else. But I'm just saying, I'm not going to get that heat very quickly when I'm starting at 40 degrees. I'm probably going to get that many heat units real fast when I'm planting into warm conditions. So because of that, there's much more chance that diseases and insects or anything else can bother my stand early on. So yes, I agree. If I plant a little bit later when it's warmer, I'm probably going to get a better, more consistent stand. But unfortunately, it also means I'm going to sacrifice yield.
So one of the things you brought up multiple times is planting early. What is when would early be considered for you? Like at what date you're like, okay, we're going?
Look at your crop insurance date is my advice, because every area is going to be a little bit different. So for us in our area, it's April 10th. So April 10th, I want to be out there going. Now, you also can buy up an earlier date with most crops. So you pay a little bit more money, you can plant a little earlier, and you're still covered by insurance. That's the number one thing I just tell guys. Make sure you're covered by insurance. If the insurance company says go, you should be in pretty good shape.
So basically what you're saying is that you want to plant early, but you have to have all of these other separate things added on by having good genetics and good seed treatment and good cold germ and all of these different things in order to plant early.
Yep, that's right. So that's why we have 40 series corn. So then any farmer can go out with confidence knowing, hey, this stuff is actually proven. Cold soils, it's going to be fine. However, the soil's got to be dry. So a lot of people used to say, well, you shouldn't plant until the soil's fit. Well, what does that even mean? If the soil's dry enough and so I can get good seed to soil contact and I'm not mudding things in, then typically we're going.
And it's just based on the crop insurance date, soil's fit, and even if the soil's frozen, basically almost, it's just coming out of a frost because it's 40 degrees.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've planted many times. There's still some frost in the ground. I remember the first time I did that and my dad said, "You're nuts. What are you doing?" I'm like, I don't know. I'm going. It's going to be fine. Trust me. And it was. So I'm really not that concerned about it. I don't care about the soil temp. I really don't. What I care about is the date and that it's dry. And if I'm planting 40 series corn. Because honestly, with every other corn out there, they're not tested at what ours is at. And it might be fine, but it also might not be fine. And seed corn companies, they're not going to refund you yield loss. They're just going to replace your seed. So you can go out and replant, and that's all fine. But even if you did get full yield still, you had to take extra time. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible with the stuff we're doing so you don't have all that risk and all that worry. And the other big thing is a lot of people talk about this imbibitional chilling where, the seed, its first drink of water has to be warm. Yeah, we've proven that's not true. Absolutely not true when we have 40 series corn. So we've tested it. We've done in our lab, we have a registered seed lab, certified seed lab, and we've had the tests run. We know it's not a problem. Imbibitional chilling, zero issue at all with Hefty 40 series corn. So anyway, those are my arguments for why I think a farmer should plant early. But the biggest thing I'm going to come back to, sure, the higher yield really matters. And you got to think about not just the day you start, but think about the day you finish. Okay, so if I can start a couple days earlier, it means I finish a couple days earlier. Well, a lot of times when we're finishing, then our yield is just not the best. So if I can move that up, it makes a difference. But the really big thing is then I have so much more time for every other job on the farm. And I mean, it is proven now early planting pays with soybeans. So I want to get my corn done so I can get my soybeans done too. And there's zero chance I'm flipping that around. I don't want to plant soybeans before corn because I want my corn in early. I want my soybeans in early too, but I need my corn in early. And like for us, our first plant date for soybeans isn't until April 26th. That's the first crop insurance date. I can have all my corn done by then.
Yeah, you brought up a lot of good points about why I should be convinced to plant my corn early. And I think this will be a fun series where we can continue to talk about different topics with you or with other people too.
Okay, well, here's the other thing. Look, ultimately, every farmer can farm however they want. I don't care. I'm just saying if the goal is I want to get maximum yield on the farm and profitability, it doesn't cost anything more to plant earlier, to plant into colder soils. And if I can do something that costs me nothing and gains me yield on average and gives me time to do all these other things, it's like, well, why would I not do that? So I don't care. It doesn't matter to me for every other farmer out there, but all I know is I want to make as much money as I can. It's tough enough on the farm without stacking the odds against myself. And I know when I plant later, that's what ends up happening. But a lot of seed companies will say, oh, you got to wait until later. Well, the reason why is because they don't have stuff that is tested. They don't have stuff that is approved for planting in super cold soils. We do. So we have a very, very unique position compared to everybody else.
And when we talk about these convince me or talk about different things, then I get to learn a little bit too about what's going on, because then it just proves another point. Because when you're younger, you hear a lot of different points of view from everyone, especially in college and growing up, and you just hear all different perspectives and different things. But I want to be convinced that that's actually what we should be doing.
Yeah, and I mean, go to the coffee shop. It doesn't matter if you're 25 or 75. You're going to hear nonsense when you go into the coffee shop, and you're also going to hear people's past experiences. And yes, I get it that a lot of people have failed by planting early. We have ourselves too. That's why we kept working on it to try to figure out what else we need to do. So in addition to just using 40 series corn, I mean, we're always using a little bit of insecticide and fungicide and things like that in furrow, and that seems to help early on too. I don't have to do that, but it does seem to make a little bit of difference. We're gaining yield, we're gaining profit, and ultimately that's what I'm after.
Yeah, and this one's a very hot topic because everyone's worried about corn and making sure you get the most yield because you want to make the most money you possibly can on the farm. So thanks for joining me today on this episode of the Agronomy Answers podcast. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe, and join us for the next episode.